The one thing that I believe would work everywhere is fighting. Because it doesn't matter what color you are, what country you come from, or what language you speak. We're all human beings, and fighting's in our DNA, man. We get it and we like it.
Hi, I'm Michael Morgan, and welcome to this week's episode of the Wokecast. Joining me in the old school fashion, down the pipe, down the phone, is my Cody, because Roland's finest MP3 recorder is chubby busted right now, is my homie from New York, G from WoTV.
Yes, G from WoTV with the technical difficulties. Hey, Mike, what's going on?
I'm real good. I'm not as hoarse or not as husky or not as Barry White like this week, but I'm slowly getting over it. I'm slowly getting around it. But we've got a pretty packed show today. Our special guest is John Kavanagh, the legendary figure in Irish MMA and actually, global MMA. Really got to give the guy his due. But also, we're going to be recapping the weekend's action, not only what we've just seen, but what's coming up as well. But, first off, let's just go headlong into what was, I have to say, an incredible night of fights. UFC 243. To be fair, I don't know about you, G, but to be fair, my only real talking point here, don't get me wrong, there was there was a spectacular knockout, but for me, my real talking point I wanted to kick off with was a big respect to you, because we all know how the main event between Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker panned out, but I just love the way that you embraced those press-ups, which, because, that was your forfeit, you embraced it like a champ. You ate crow like I don't know, man. You ate crow like somebody who was an expert.
Listen, I know how to lose. I can handle losing here and there every so often. So you got your little measly push-up, no sweat, no issues, not at all. And you know what? I did them happily. I wanted Izzy to win. I just thought Robert Whittaker was going to pull it off. So my heart was full as I did the push-up. So don't worry.
To be fair, you handled, like I say, those push-ups like a champ. But what I was what I was kind of amazed at was the sly way in which you paused between each time when the old arm started to tremble. I love that. You thought I didn't see that, didn't you?
Tremble? What did you say? Trembled? I was showing off. I was counting because people say that I short myself one. So I made sure when I got to 20, I said 20 and did 5 more so that certain people would shut the hell up and stop saying I cheat on my push-ups. But it was no sweat. I don't think I was shaking. I just think I hate it, but it's all good. Izzy's champ, baby.
But going back to the weekend's action, I mean, UFC 243, as I say, my main talking point was Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker. I mean, before we get on to the main event, were there any standout moments for you that you just wanted to run down?
Yeah, I think the co-main event is something that needs to be discussed. I think both of them went to work, even though it was a decision win for Dan Hooker. But I think we just need to discuss that, Al Quinta's got some issues with long-limb fighters that keep him at a distance. And Dan Hooker was able to do that with those low leg calf kicks that were beautiful and some really good defensive wrestling. And Al just couldn't get in on the inside, and Dan Hooker got him all night and won, decision win. And it was nice to see Dan be so strategic, but sad to see my man Al go down like that. He's got some work to do with the fighting on the inside, with long limb fighters. Cowboy did the same to him, but with those front kicks. So it's a little bit of a pattern here, but I wish Al the best, and I can't wait to see him fight again. And Dan's looking to fight Dustin Poirier, so we'll see what happens, Mike.
I got to admit, I was ever so slightly, I felt for him, because having travelled all that way, and to, basically come up short, but as well as that, having come off what for me, I would say is a career best in fighting and clashing Khabib Nurmagomedov, and, being one of the few to actually taking, the entire distance. I really felt for him. But you know who I didn't feel for? Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker. Now, for me, don't get me wrong, Even though I'd actually predicted Israel Adesanya to come away with the victory, I was surprised how Robert Whittaker's midriff, how his torso actually held up, because I thought first of all that was going to be the target, that was going to be with pinpoint accuracy where the kicks, where the punches were landing, but it was strictly headshots from Israel Adesanya. The left high kick just kept finding its place. Plus, the left hook, lots of straights. Basically, the jab, he's popping off all manner of shots. But his beautiful movement, I think, not only is Israel Adesanya's movement mesmerizing, the fakes and the feints, they are utterly convincing.
Yeah, I think his fight IQ is something that needs to be discussed as well. Because in the first round, he was filling him out, trying to figure out the distance, using the feints, and then suddenly at the end of the round, he drops him with a beautiful right hook. And then the second round, he starts fighting in the pocket some more because Robert Whittaker keeps charging forward at him aggressively, looking for those power shots, but it causes them to fight in the pocket. And Israel's response to fighting in the pocket was beautiful. He was catching him with some beautiful hooks, and Robert could not stand any longer, and he got dropped with a left hook second round. First round was a right hook because in the pocket, Israel Adesanya was lighting him up, and it was beautiful to see. And he had to adjust to that. He had to figure out, you know what, this guy's charging forward, and when he does, we'll fight in the pocket, and that's when I'm going to get him, and that's what we saw. And that's fight IQ and adjusting during the fight. I think that is gorgeous. It's just wonderful.
What was gorgeous and what was wonderful was Israel's walkout. I don't care what anybody says. That, for me, that was the best walkout that I'd have ever seen. Now, okay, I get it. On Twitter, I have to say, I had a deluge of people actually telling me, look, have you seen anything other than the UFC? Yes, I have. Have you seen anything other than, these fighters who are mainstream? Yes, I have. The fact of the matter is that coordination, plus the pop culture reference, plus the fact that, these were childhood friends, plus the fact that this was a title contention or a title bout, man, perfectly executed to the T.
I didn't get what everybody was upset about. I'm the queen of hating WWE type of bullshit. And I was sitting here at home like, yo, this is dope. Why was it dope? Because he put so much time into it. He had the childhood friends. It showed his athleticism. It was choreographed. It was super dope. It was entertaining. It had meaning behind it. And then he did it well. This wasn't Henry Cejudo, who probably went to the dollar store and got a cloak and a fake snake and came across at the weigh-ins looking like like he was in some Halloween costume. Like, Israel Adesanya put some thought into this, and it came off as authentic. It matched his personality, and it was exciting to have something like that before a match. Like, I don't want to hear none of that nonsense, especially me who hates that type of stuff. And I can recognize that it just simply was done well. I just think he has a lot of haters. That's it. People just don't like the kid because he's brash, he's confident, and they don't like him for it.
And rightly so. I mean, given the speed at which he's actually got to these lofty heights, considering, a lot of people were putting quite a bit of store by Conor McGregor's rise, Israel Adesanya actually did it quicker. But as well as that, I mean, going back to the whole walkout and going back to, music in general, I love the confidence that he exudes, so much so that, he was dancing to Robert Whittaker's walkout as well.
Yeah, I thought his energy was awesome. He didn't come off as nervous. He didn't come off as overly aggressive. He really looked like, again, something that I love to see in fighters is that he looked like he was having fun. And whenever a fighter looks like they're having fun, you know what happens? They win. You remember Cody Garbrandt breakdancing all over Dominic Cruz?
Yeah.
Look at Israel. Look at Israel Sanders. Before he fought Anderson Silva, he was doing weird anime shit. I don't watch anime, so I don't know what the hell all that was. But then for this fight, he takes out his notepad and puts Robert's name in the death note, and then he comes up and he beats the brakes off of him. He's having fun. And the more a fighter has fun, the more we get to have fun because they exude that in the cage. So what is everybody complaining about? Shut the fuck up and have some fun with the kid. Win or lose, you are entertained. It's so annoying sometimes to hear people complain about something that is authentically entertaining, you know?
And that's just it, you know. I just think that some people are just born just to complain, but, you know, others are born to entertain, and that's Israel Adesanya. But, you know, moving forward to this weekend's Fight Night 161, I feel that, you know, that the element of entertainment might be a little bit lacking there. But before we do actually break down and actually look down the card for Fight Night 161, I think this is an opportune moment to go into our exclusive interview with John Kavanagh.
Love it.
It's a pleasure to welcome to this week's episode. He's known to many as the godfather of Irish MMA, the legendary, the inimitable, the unconquerable, John Kavanagh.
That's quite an introduction.
Well, you know what? I've heard so many introductions, people bringing you on, whether it's on TV, whether it's on the internet, whether it's on podcasts. And, you know, I suppose that was just my sly attempt to try and, you know, in the efforts of one-upmanship, to try and like go that extra mile. But no, I meant those sentiments, to be honest with you. It's been a long while in coming. We've spoken over the years. And it's great to have you on the Wocast. Now, John, I'm just going to quickly just canter through quite a few questions which I have, but also I'm actually going to refer to our listener questions. But first off, let's talk about the all-important Euro Fight Night. You're actually reviving the brand after a hiatus. First of all, where did Euro Fight Night go?
So yeah, I did it 6 years ago, almost to the month, and it was quite successful. It went well, and then I guess life got in the way. That was about the start of Conor's run, and everything just went a bit crazy for that period of time. Have more or less got things sort of under control again, and an opportunity came up. I wouldn't have done it unless we had this prize at the end of it. I think it's quite a unique opportunity for somebody, rather than the typical, fighting for a purse and getting your hand raised. It's something pretty cool, I think, is on offer to somebody. So yeah, it was a bit of a few things came together at the right time, and then also meeting Kadu that helped out a lot with the logistics and has a great understanding of the UK scene, and was able to do a lot of the work over there that I wouldn't have been able to do.
But that's just one of the things which I'll call it as I see it. That slightly concerned me. The fact is, your foray after such a hiatus is in the UK. Now, having been to Ireland and having seen what a glorious and a lovely and quite a warm and welcoming place it is, I was a little bit surprised that, you know, on your first trip back into the EFN territory, on your first trip back actually, unleashing the brand again, it was in the UK and not, you know, your beloved Ireland. What actually prompted that move?
Venues. That's the issue over here. So you're kind of in Ireland, we kind of have two choices. There's a few venues that are around about the 500 seater capacity. And then you have the fantastic Tree Arena, which is 10,000 capacity. One was a little bit too small. One was a little bit too big. The Victoria House in Manchester is 1,500 seater, which is perfect. So that's why I went with there.
Now, in terms of the actual logistics of the event, you've got quite a unique proposition in that, you know, I'm going to let you tell it, but at the end of what effectively is a one-night tournament, there is a special, how can I put it, there's a hook, there's a means by which people want to get the best out of themselves. Do you want to just quickly unpack how this actually will be working on the night?
Yeah, so the main attraction of the night is an 8-man tournament, and the winner gets a Bellator contract, a 6-figure Bellator contract. I've always, over the years, as a coach, as somebody with a large fight team, your goal is always to try and get them on the big show, whether that be UFC, Bellator. You know, there's one or two others that when your fighter is on that, they're what I would call a professional athlete, and I define that by they're making enough money to live on fighting alone. So there is a couple of obviously big-ish UK and European shows, but you're generally fighting for a sum of money that you need to also have a job. You're on UFC or Bellator, you can survive. You can, if you're doing well, you do very well. But even on the inverted commas basic contract, you can train full time. So when this came about, I thought that was very cool. I actually picked a weight class that I had nobody in. I wanted it to be for someone outside of my gym. And Kadu put together a great lineup, a lot of exciting prospects in the UK. And we're going to see who the best is. And the best has a guaranteed jump to the next level. It's not, well, maybe if you get a title in this organization, maybe you go on to the big show. It's not that. This is a very simple black and white idea.
Moving forward, it's a nice taster. It's a nice bit of an enticement to have this as, almost a wonderful prize at the end of the evening. Is this something that you're looking to roll out in 2020, or is this like a one and done? We won't see you again until the next few years.
It's a little bit of a toes in the water. We've actually, myself and Cave, we've had a couple of somewhat crazy offers. Like we're getting a lot of attention from around the world in this. I've had guys on to me from the Middle East, from South America. We've been talking with the Royal Marines about doing a series for them next year. So there's a lot of interest in it, but we have to do it. We have to do one first and make sure that me and Kay can work together and make sure the idea works. Will they always be tournaments? Will they always be for contracts? I can't say that definitively yet, but I would only be really kind of interested in keeping it going if I can offer something very cool for someone on the night. I want it to be something like this. But yeah, it's kind of toes in the water. Let's see if it's fun, if people enjoy it, if it's successful, and then we might have a series for 2020 lined up.
That kind of leads me on to what effectively is a two-part question. Now, again, I started off by saying I was a little bit disappointed that you're starting off in the UK, and believe me, having been to Ireland, like I say, it was a massive surprise. But does that mean that you're looking to tour this as a concept, or in your mind's eye, would the perfect venue, would the perfect next location for you be Ireland?
I don't have a strong idea in my head of where the next one will be. To be honest, for pro shows, it's quite easy to bring in. Let's say I'm just pulling something out of the air. If the next one was in Liverpool, it's almost as easy for me to get to Liverpool as it is to get to the Tree Arena. It's not really that much of a difference, because I'm still stuck with the same issue of venue capacity in Dublin. They're either too small or too big. So yeah, it's just that the UK has a number of that kind of Goldilocks number between 1,000 and 1,500 seater venues. So yeah, just no real decision made on that yet. We have this lineup. We have the fight card done. It's fantastic. We have a date. We have a venue. It's almost sold out. So we have everything done for this one, and then we will sit back at the end of it all and figure out the next move.
Now, again, just sticking with next moves. As I said, it was a two-part question. You touched on, why it isn't going to be, or why possibly Ireland at the moment would be a little bit problematic in terms of venues. But that kind of was a setup for what basically I want to get into next. And that is the state of mixed martial arts in Ireland. For me and for my money, it seems as though there's been a renaissance. There's been a sort of reviving of interest in terms of what Bellator are actually doing for the sport. And it just strikes me that, Ireland as a destination for mixed martial arts just seems to be a little bit, it's more than a little bit, it's widely open. I mean, would you agree with me, or would you disagree that, at the moment, we are experiencing a little bit of a down period in terms of what's going on for mixed martial arts in Ireland?
We're experiencing a down period?
Yeah. In terms of venues, in terms of mixed martial arts promotion visiting Ireland, it does seem to be all Bellator at the moment. They seem to be putting on the spectacular, bombastic shows. They seem to be attracting people to venues. They seem to be putting on or giving Irish fighters a lot of work.
Yes. Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, if you'd have told me a couple of years ago, we would have what's pretty much agreed to be the second biggest organization in the world visiting every 6 months, I would have said, no way, that's impossible. And yet we have it now. 10,000 people coming every 6 months to cheer on 20 odd pro fights. So, you know, you're looking at 40 pro fights a year. It's this golden period for professional MMA. You know, obviously they're all pro fights, and then a couple of amateur shows dotted around. So I think it's we're in a fantastic period right now for MMA in Ireland.
Now, I think it would be remiss of me not to actually mention one of your, I would say, all-time standout proteges, students, people that you've worked with, and that is Conor McGregor. In terms of where you are now, sitting basically waiting for him to actually return to the cage, you put something out there quite recently. I'll just cut straight to the chase. It was something to do with Russia. I mean, do you want to elaborate on that? Is there anything that you know that you want to unpack?
I don't know what people got so excited about.
I'll tell you what, because it comes off the back of, obviously, recent chatter about, you know, first of all, where Conor is going next. Obviously, they look at you as the linchpin, as a very integral part of that. But also, the fact is, you know, in terms of recent conversations, that's something which, you know, again, maybe people are reaching, maybe people are actually interpreting.
I'm trolling you, Em. So yes, of
you
course.
got me there.
I saw Habib Fattah that he would accept the rematch in Moscow. So I made the connection there to draw a few people in. but in all seriousness, wouldn't that be great? I remember when the Aldo fight was being talked about, Conor actually was pressing the UFC to have that fight in Rio. That's where he wanted to do it. He just loved that. You'd have to ask him why he'd want to go to the other person's kind of hometown. Now, obviously, Habib is from Dagestan, not from Russia. But wouldn't it still be quite a spectacle to do it in Moscow if we had some big, massive venue like they did recently in Melbourne, and to have it packed out? There's just a great kind of a Rocky IV vibe to it. So, we would love that.
Again, just sticking with Conor ever so slightly, obviously around the time where, you know, things were slightly heating up and it looked as though Conor would be coming back, could be coming back. There was obviously, you know, a little bit of, how can I put it? He was mired controversy. Let's just put it that way. When you, as a person, obviously closer to him, obviously knowing what was actually happening, or obviously a different perspective from other people, what was your initial reaction when you saw, first of all, what he was going through, how he reacted with it, you know, in terms of the statements which actually came afterwards? But, you know, can you shed a little bit of light as to, you know, what he's actually going through as a mixed martial artist?
He's training hard. He's back in the gym. He's back training, back working out. And I know his management team are working with the UFC now on trying to set up a date and an opponent. Unfortunately for you, I have no news on that. I have no exclusive for you. We're all just going to have to sit back and wait. But I can tell you the mindset is great. He's very motivated, very excited about it. We're having great kind of back and forwards and looking at technique and looking at the, you know, the recent UFC, kind of watching that and chatting about it. So yeah, the motivation is there. I know the management are working hard with the UFC. There's always a lot of I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed when a McGregor contract is coming up. But I think that's just a matter of time. That's just a matter of the will is there. So it's just aligning the stars for a matchup. And I really, we were close to December. I think that was, I thought that was what was going to be. And then that card filled up with 3 title fights, so it wasn't going to happen. Now we're looking at first quarter of 2020. Can't get any more specific than that. Because I don't know. I don't know myself.
But as his coach, you'd have some preferences. Obviously, there are some names which have been thrown out there, the Poiriers of the world. Now, when you look at that, when you look at those possibilities, are there any which, as obviously a confidant, as somebody who is actually close to the action in terms of him and being his coach, are there any which, you're actually leaning towards yourself, which will be a preference?
Yeah, I thought the Frankie Edgar one would have been very interesting. So here's the deal: we have to. Well, not we. Conor has to sort of figure out why is he fighting. That's his biggest inverted commas problem, and I say first world problems, because he achieved his goals. He won the world titles. He won the money. So on this, if you want to call it second run, so to speak, it's got to be fights that are of great interest to him. And the Frankie Edgar fight was of interest. It was motivating him. It was exciting him. It was very interesting to us. And there's a bit of legacy, a bit of history there. He's kind of one of the very few 145ers he didn't fight on that run to Aldo. But Edgar has also had great success at 155. So yeah, I just thought that made a huge amount of sense for a large number of reasons. I still think it's the one that makes sense, and Frankie has tweeted his interest in it. Conor's already shown his interest in it, so let's set it up.
And finally, before we move away from Conor McGregor in terms of questions and on to listener questions, I'm intrigued. For me, I've got this romanticized view of you, Conor, and Owen Roddy as being the dream team. First off, recently Conor, expressed a little bit of, discomfiture or disdain that you hadn't actually watched the performance back, in the time frame that he thought might be better in terms of getting your view on it. What was your thoughts when you actually heard those words coming from his mouth?
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously talked about that, and I completely see his point. I was a little bit heartbroken. I was burying my head in the sand a little bit, but of course I have since watched it. But I think that was just a couple of days after, and it was one day after it. So I was going through the grieving period. I was being what I would call a little bitch of just trying to ignore it. But I should have been just pacing up to him, watching it the way he was. But all in the past, all positive moving forward.
And speaking of moving forward, you mentioned that, first quarter of 2020 is when, you are looking to get things back on track. But will that be, as I mentioned, with the dream team, and that is Owen Roddy, John Kavanagh and Conor McGregor?
I can't imagine it being any other way.
Incredible. Okay, well, we're going to neatly segue over to listener questions. First off, this particular listener was intrigued by the matchup of Cal Eleanor and James Gallagher. Now, that, in that particular matchup, it was down to either a misunderstanding or something around irregularities to do with Cal Eleanor that's now been actually all sorted or mopped up. Can you see that happening in the very near future, i.e. his next matchup will be Cal Eleanor, and that is James Gallagher will be fighting Cal Eleanor, and when?
I don't know. I don't know for definite. I can tell you I would like that. I really liked the matchup when we spoke about this almost 6 months ago, I guess, because we were looking at it in the lead up to the September card. I thought it was a very exciting matchup. I respect Cal's skills hugely, and I thought it would be a great contest. So now that his side of things, as far as I'm aware, is all cleared up, why not? Why not? It was due to happen, so let's do it.
Okay, so let me segue into the next question, which is this is from somebody called Hectic_1. Does John Kavanagh think UFC or Bellator does a better job in building European prospects?
Well, I mean, if we just go on the numbers, as of late, Bellator has a much stronger presence in Europe, I believe, and just has a lot more European fighters signed. So, of course, if you go to the extreme ends, um, I'm trying to think who does UFC have right at the minute. And obviously, Conor is quite a big name, but is there Nathaniel Wood? Is it?
Yeah.
He's doing very well. Um, look, spade to spade. UFC is the bigger brand, it's the bigger show. There's just more attention around it. But right now, the footprint is owned by Bellator, I think. Like, how many shows have they done in Europe in the last 12 months versus UFC? I think the answer is pretty clear on that, which one is doing more.
Okay, just a minute whilst I just load up the next question. I'm having trouble with this.
Question hectic. Stay hectic.
The next one comes from Hagfish118. What are his thoughts when a fighter goes through long periods of inactivity for whatever reason, good, bad, or indifferent?
I mean, the acquisition of skill is about daily repetition. So the longer that we're not getting that in, the more your skill is diminishing. That's just factual. There's no escaping that. So yes, inactivity is not a positive. It's not something we're aiming for. A little every day is the way to keep the losses away. There we go. That's a nice saying. I like that. A little a day keeps the losses away.
There's a couple more questions. As I say, we've got so many. I feel very bad because, obviously given your time constraints, we do have to whittle them down. But the next one comes from Adascola01. Would he consider not training Conor anymore? How does he see his legacy as a coach? And what martial arts is his favourite in all of them and why?
Wow. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I think, first of all, no. I will. As long as Conor wishes me to be there, I will be there for him. And I think that's just going to be forever. That's just our relationship. We've been through so much together, and we have this. There's just a lot that goes into a relationship between a coach and an athlete. And I think the biggest thing is trust, and that takes time to build up. And we just have so much between us at this stage. I don't see that changing. His legacy. Two-weight class world champion in Cage Warriors, two-weight class world champion in UFC, most highly paid fighter. I think he's done very well. I guess people are always on me to start judging people's actions outside the cage, and that's just not me because I'm working on myself. I've got plenty of my own faults I need to be working on. I'm not sitting around judging other people. As an athlete, he's done incredible. And my favorite martial art is, without a doubt, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's something you can do forever. I love striking arts. I love wrestling, but it's definitely not as easy to keep competitive in those as time goes on. Of course, someone like John Wayne Parr throws that rule out the window. The guy's in his 40s and still whooping ass. But I just think for the majority of people, a little bit of rolling around, you can kind of do that forever. It's something very satisfying about it, something very good for the mind about it. I think that's all the questions with it.
Indeed. I know I said that I was going to try and squeeze in just a couple more questions, but I've got one of my own, and I'm quite intrigued by this. Here's
the funny thing. So right now, my loving fiance is beside me on this interview, and she started texting me saying, I wish I could have texted in that you're the father of my child as some other girl just to try and catch you out online. So that's how her mind works.
I'm dead. But no, the question I had, and this was, like I say, a question which came from myself, and that is, our mutual friend, Jude Samuel, as you know, is an accomplished black belt. Have you ever sparred with him? And who gets the better of each other when you're actually on the mat?
We have not had the pleasure of rolling with each other, but I have no doubt he would leave me tied up like a pretzel. Guy's a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
He's the most dangerous matchmaker in the world.
100%. Right. Moving forward with Kairos MMA. Were there any fighters that you looked at once you knew that? Well, were there any fighters that you looked at and knew that they were the one?
I have not done that, but I have thought the other way and been proven wrong a few times. I've never really looked at someone as like, God damn, this person's going to be unreal. Because I don't really believe in that. I don't believe when someone has like, one or two good sessions. I don't jump to conclusions because really I need to see them on the mat for a year. But I'll give you an example. This actually, I'm in my head. I realize this is coming out wrong, but I'll say it anyway. When Pedro Carvalho come over to me, I was not blown away for his first few weeks, even his first few months training.
Wow.
He was certainly tough and he was certainly up for a scrap. But the way he was training, I just thought, he's going to last a while and then go back to Portugal. And the guy kept showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up. And then he got a late notice fight on the Bellator show where he fought the Bama world champion. And he was kind of brought in, let's call a spade, to lose that to, is it Daniel Crawford? I think that's the guy's name.
I think so, yeah.
He was 10-0 or 10-1 at the time, and Pedro's record was not really worth talking about. He beat that guy. Then another short notice fight in Italy, he beats that guy. Then Derek Campos, a big name in Bellator, he beats that guy. And then he suddenly finds himself in the tournament, and then he wins the first round of the tournament. So he's someone that definitely surprised me with how far he's gone. And, it's obviously hindsight's 2020. Now I look and I go, yeah, of course I should have seen that, but I guess I didn't.
Okay, just one final question. I know you've been incredibly generous with your time. You did say to me I had limited amounts with you, and you've gone way over that. But just one final question from the listeners, and that is, it comes from Highlights MMA, who asks, who is the best amateur young lad in your gym that you basically think will be great one day and that nobody, nobody has actually heard of?
Now, imagine asking a parent, so who's your favorite kid? How the hell can I answer that question? No, look, we've got some great amateurs. Obviously, Lee Hammond is a standout. He's an IMF world champion. We've got a lot of guys that have medaled at the IMFs, but I have equal love for them all, and they get equal attention off me. And when we're off this phone call, I'll tell you the real answer. How about that?
Sounds like a plan. Just before we do wrap up, just the all-important call to action, and that is, where can people get tickets for EFN Fight Night? When does it take place? And just a quick canter through what people can expect to see on the night.
Yeah, so Euro Fight Night, if you can follow it on the usual social medias. On my Instagram page, the link is in my bio to buy tickets online. If you know any of the guys on the card, they're selling tickets themselves. I'm trying to look at a ball and delaying on the phone. When's it on again? It's on soon. Let me get my calendar up here. So it's on Saturday week, October 19th. In Manchester. I believe it's called Victoria House. I'm really sure.
Victoria
It's going to be an old school 8-man tournament. I haven't seen one of them in a long time. It was actually my first ever experience of MMA was I did an 8-man tournament in Ireland, and I'm just watching MMA. Was watching Heist Gracie do 8-man. Well, I think he might have even done 16-man tournaments back in the day. So I think there's something kind of cool about them. And then there's a really good undercard as well. And one of those fights, I was putting in the stories there about that, the kid that came through cancer and now he's back fighting, and we've got some great amateurs on there. So all in all, I think it's going to be a fun night. And I hope to see a lot of people at it, and give me a shout if you want a selfie, say hello, whatever. And I'll see everybody there in the night.
Outstanding. John Kavanagh, you have been Incredibly gracious, and thank you so much for going way over the time that you had actually allotted to this. But, thank you for your candidness as well. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Wocast.
Thank you, sir. And thanks to everybody for listening.
So for me, what struck me about the whole conversation with John, and that is, whilst we've spoken in the past, and whilst, yes, I've known him for a number of years, we've never spoken on the level of the candidness that he delivered in that interview. I think he was honest, he was open. I think, he was humble, and I think also, he put things in context, especially when he was talking about, Conor McGregor's return. I really enjoyed the conversation only because, I really did feel as though it was a conversation and not an interview with John Kavanagh.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I like that he was candid about Conor. I like that he talked about what a lot of us, squalor about online or make assumptions about, like Conor's drive again. We all question that. So to hear him discuss Conor's drive so candidly with you, like, what is Conor fighting for? If he comes back, what is it for? Thank you, John, for speaking on that, because we're all wondering the same thing. He's rich out of his mind. He's having a good time outside of fighting. If he comes back, what for? And what will be the motivating force? And it's so good to hear Conor back training with, his old partners and whatnot. So it was quite a blessing that he felt comfortable and candid talking to you. And even with the joke about his girlfriend and the baby, I cracked up laughing. Like, he really felt comfortable with you, Mike, and I like that.
I think, what really did give me that whoa moment is when, I asked him about, the point that Conor raised about the fact that, he was disappointed that John hadn't actually seen or played back the fight with Khabib Nurmagomedov. And like I say, I was shocked by John's candidness. He basically said, look, I was being a bitch.
Yeah, he was. And again, I always respect someone's honesty. He took accountability. He was like, listen, I was in my feelings. I didn't have time to look back at that fight. And keep it real. Why lie? Why, when he's been friends with him so long, just be dead ass honest. I was in my feelings. But it bothered me, so I didn't watch it. And guess what? I bet you kind of respected that. Like, it sucked, but yeah, okay, cool. You was in your feelings. Let's move on,
Yeah, exactly. But, one of the things which was kind of intriguing, though, was the whole approach to Euro Fight Night. It was kind of surprising that they didn't appear to be like a blueprint going forward. And I just liked the fact that, what he was basically saying was, look, none of us know. We just want to see how this first one goes, and then, we'll take things from there.
I mean, sometimes wonderful things come out of not planning things, Mike. You know what I mean? Like, let them observe and see how this goes, and from there build. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in the long run, somebody's getting a dope-ass Bellator contract in the end. And to me, it sounds like, to John, that's what matters most. You know what I mean? Like, his fighter is going to benefit from this, and while they're doing that, let him build and learn from this experience, and then they can improve upon it. And I don't see anything wrong with that,
Definitely hear that. But moving on then to Fight Night 161 this coming weekend, headed by Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Michelle Waterson. And now, for me, I've got to admit, even though that is, a nice main event, for me, the return of Cub Swanson after like a massive break against Kron Gracie is, that's floating my boat. I mean, essentially, you've got this jiu-jitsu master facing, arguably one of the finest strikers in the UFC.
Oh, most definitely. But I will say that the finest striker, Cub Swanson, is kind of showing signs of coming, winding down a little bit. So he needs to desperately win this one. And I think Kron wants to make a name for himself. And also, Kron is a pretty dangerous guy. And we all saw how Ortega kind of choked Cub out. He is susceptible to, submission. So it should be pretty interesting. So does Cub beat the brakes for Kron, or does Kron somehow take this fight to the ground and submit him? And I'm all here for it. I think I'm going to be risky on this one. I'm going to go with Kron.
You see, I'm going with the old faithful, Cub Swanson. I do also see another narrative here. I mean, if you think about it, it's old school versus new school. You've got Cron Gracie basically at 5-0. Against, I would say, a stalwart, someone who's actually been around the block, someone who I would really describe as kind of like one of the standouts or previous standouts of the promotion, who I feel will be taking us back and reminding us why he was, basically someone to be feared when you stepped in the octagon with him.
But keep in mind, four losses in a row for Cub. Shane Burgos, Renato Carneiro, Frankie Edgar, Brian Ortega. This is why I'm leaning towards Kron a little bit here. I think Cub is winding down towards the end of his career. Not the end of his career, but he's just not as good as he used to be. I'm a little worried about that. 4 losses in a row, and the last one to Shane Burgos, and a split decision. Okay, that was a pretty rough fight for him, and he still lost. So I'm a little nervous. But I think he can get it done, but I'm going to put my money on Kron. I think Kron is going to use his momentum, and if he takes it to the ground, he's going to submit him. He's a Gracie. We shall see.
Now, in the main event, Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Michelle Waterson. I'm going with Europe's finest, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, only because I want to see her get back to her former glory. I want to see her, basically, I think it's been a long time in coming. It's time for her to get her belt back.
I love watching JJ fight, but I love also watching Doug Rose beat the living crap out of her. So if she wants to try to get her belt back, that'd be great. But I'd love for her to hit another wall with Doug Rose. But as far as this matchup, I think that she's going to win this because I just think it really isn't much to say. She's just the better fighter. She's better. Her takedown defense is impeccable. Her striking is on a whole nother level. And her footwork is just amazing. And it's amazing for any style that you can put her against. You want to put her up against a wrestler, she'll outwork you with her footwork there. You want to put her up against another striker, she gets you on the inside or she keeps you on the outside. It doesn't really matter, And I don't think Michelle has too much to offer her. It'll be a fun fight. But I think JJ gets it done and quite easily. And I think Michelle's going to try to take her down. But Joanna's takedown defense is unbelievable. I mean, you've seen her against Andrade, Claudia Gadella. These are takedown artists, and she did fairly well fighting them in their own game. So I put my money on JJ. But do I want to see her as champ again? It would be interesting, but I'm okay with Willie Zhang holding it down for a little bit for now,
Well, the only other, I would say, notable piece of action that we'll be seeing this weekend is Bellator in Milan. Now, my old friend Kane Musa will be fighting on that card. He's got a change of opponent in the last minute change of opponent. I personally see that this is another opportunity for him to showcase striking skills, great takedown defense, but, basically inching him forward to a point where, I feel that, he'll be fighting more further afield. But I'm looking forward to seeing Kane Musa back in action. But as well as that, on the bill, again from the UK, is Yannick Bahati, who's facing Melvin Manhoef. I'm not sure if you've got any runners and riders on it, but those are the two that I certainly will be paying close attention to.
I still am a fan of Alessio Sakara, and he's fighting Kanan Grigsby. I'm not too familiar with him, but I am familiar with Alessio. He's hit or miss, but I am going to keep an eye on that fight. And of course, the fight that you just mentioned, Melvin Manhoef versus Yannick Bahati. Definitely going to keep an eye on that. I love Melvin, but I feel like he's either hit or miss as well. So we'll see which way it goes. But I just saw some footage of him on the pads, and he looked pretty slick. And I look forward to his fights. And plus, I'm a huge fan. So that's it so far with Bellator. Did you catch Bellator 229 at all? Did you see Larkin and this Russian dude go at it, Korshev?
I did. I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed with how that actually turned out. I really did feel, or in terms of expectation, I thought that it was going to be an emphatic and one-sided beatdown by Larkin, and you could just see in his face that he was expecting it too, because, whilst he was waiting for the decision to be read out, it was almost as though, he was there beating himself up about, you should have did this, you should have done that. And that was really, I feel, the story of the fight.
Yeah, I mean, I was just taken back by Khrushchev. That's what was it, like a spinning wheel kick that dropped Larkin? Oh man, it made me scream in the office. Like I was like, holy shit, how did he survive that? And even though Larkin walked away with the split decision, I'm ready to see that Russian guy fight again. Like, oh, he is scary. But I did like the comeback by Larkin in round 2. It was a split decision, but I feel like, Larkin worked for it. But I was quite surprised at the difficulty he had with it, But it was a pretty decent fight, I enjoyed some of the highlights of it, especially that wheel kick and the follow-up ground and pound by Andre. It was pretty dope. And then the Joe Schilling and Tony Johnson fight. Joe looked pretty good. And then he just made one big mistake. He kept his chin up in the air for most of the round, and Tony was able to find it. And he dropped him pretty badly, Mike. I felt bad. I liked Joe. But it was a really fun fight. I don't know if you caught it or not, but it was a really, really fun fight. Just sad to see Joe Schilling go down.
Yeah, I mean, just like yourself, I do like Joe's work, and definitely a fan. And he'll bounce back though.
Of course, always. He's got plenty of experience, and then we all make mistakes here and there, and whatever we do, whether it's fighting or in our personal lives. So, I just think he made the mistake of coming forward with his chin up, and his opponent was able to find it. So he'll bounce back from that, and he always does.
Well, as we handle the majority of listener mail in the interview with John Kavanagh, we'll save anything that we've got by way of listener mail until next week. Speaking of until next week, make some trouble.
Oh, I'm always in some trouble, don't you worry.